welcome to the Semex podcast. My name is Clarissa McCallum, Marketing Coordinator at Semex. I'm joined, as always, by Brenda Lee, our Communications Specialist. Hi, Brenda.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good. This is our second episode
It
on
is. The sun is
YouTube.
shining.
Yeah, it's
Beautiful
warmed up a
day, at
little
least today.
bit. Yeah, we hope it's spring in North America sometime soon.
Sometime soon.
Yes.
We are joined by Jonathan Merriam, our Jersey Program Manager at Semex for our Jersey podcast. And if you're listening, welcome back. And if you're watching on YouTube, welcome to our second episode of YouTube.
Yes. And I think Jonathan, he's excellent to speak about this.
Hmm.
I mean, he's the most knowledgeable Jersey guy, maybe besides Russell Gammon, which they would both laugh about, that you can run across as far as knowing pedigrees and bull
Absolutely.
information. And I think we've got a really great episode where he talks, about To Be Famous and Chief, but also some other bulls that are coming in the future that breeders can look forward to, and the importance of, some traits like polled
Yeah,
or polled is going. So I think that
absolutely.
it's a good episode.
I agree. It gives us a couple little nuggets to look forward to as well on some up and coming bulls. So that's exciting as well to get to hear about the future.
For sure. All right, let's get into it.
So, Jonathan, this is our first time on YouTube with you as well. So we're really excited to be bringing this to YouTube, and our viewers and listeners can kind of see us and take in all the action another way. And we did touch on this in our last couple of podcasts and with Mike and Julian. But if you don't mind just giving us a brief overview of the changes this proof round, just for those that are tuning in for the first time to listen to our Jersey update.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. Yeah, good idea to kind of review because there were quite a few changes this round. Canada actually updated their LPI formula. Overall rankings didn't change much. They put a little more emphasis in certain areas and removed from others, and so certain bulls might have been hit, but overall the correlation between the new and the old are fairly similar, and they did make some adjustments so that the numbers didn't change that much. But as you go down, you may see a few bulls that look different than they did before, but continues to emphasize production, but also conformation and as it's related to longevity. And so I think it's an improvement on a formula that hadn't been changed for quite a while. So that's kind of on the Canadian side. And then the US side, there weren't necessarily formula changes. But there was the base change, and that happens every 5 years in the US. And so it becomes a big adjustment for us because a lot of progress can be made in 5 years, so numbers move a lot. For Jersey specific, which probably wasn't mentioned as much in some of the other broadcasts, but Jersey's improvement was about 350 pounds of milk. So basically the average bull dropped 350. As you look at that and compare it to the December proof. Fat and protein was about 16 and 14, I believe, which we kind of look at CFP or combined fat and protein a little closer. Yes, the individual traits are important, but overall production, we're looking at both. So that's a 30-pound drop. And so just kind of a rough estimate, we used to kind of look, we'd want a bull over 100 CFP. Well, that's now 70. And so that's a big change. So just a lot of it is getting used to these new numbers. Again, bull rankings didn't change a lot, but just overall numbers changed. Cheese merit, which is another trait that we look at, dropped over 200 cheese merit dollars. So extreme bulls were 900, whereas now the highest bull is just a little over 700. And so again, adjustments to that. Now the JPI formula, obviously it includes several of these traits, and so it's gonna, since they dropped, overall it would drop. But US Jersey put in a factor to make it fairly equal, even when there is a drop, so that we're not adjusting to new numbers. On average, JPI did drop about 14 points, so not a big amount. In the past, it could have been over 100, so it was a big number to adjust to. But now it's just about 14, so there's not as much adjustment with the JPI formula or JPI numbers as we have with most everything else. But just kind of taking time to look at numbers, adjust to them. But what was nice with Jersey's, there weren't many bulls that made big adjustments as they added daughters. And so it's nice when you don't have big adjustments as well as getting used to new numbers.
For sure. And welcome, Jonathan. I just want to welcome you to YouTube. Not sure if you've been on before,
I
but
know,
it's,
not
I think,
not in person. No, voice
not
has
that you know, not that you know of. Well, I think this is just a great opportunity for everybody to get to know you better, and to understand proofs in this instance a little bit more in depth and the CMEX sires. So, of course, we need to talk about Chief ranking well both sides. So why don't you just take it from there? What's changed since December?
A chief, as he adds more daughters, he just continues to stay strong globally. He's basically the number 2 proven bull in Canada now on the rankings there, number 1 for pro dollars. He still ranks well in the US. There's a few other proven bulls that have passed him up, but not on production. It's his fertility that brings him down a bit. But as I meet with breeders, and see daughters that are now in their 3rd lactation, scoring excellent and just doing a tremendous job. The breeders are happy with them. And so he's a bull that'll continue to make an impact. He's been used globally. We're starting to see him in other countries top the charts there as well. So just a bull that's really going to have an impact on the Jersey breed. And that's the thing is once you get daughters, you're also getting sons that are eventually going to have daughters. And that's where we're at. A couple bulls in the U.S. that we're familiar with are Devour, Spiral, and Circle all have milking daughters and have done well. But the real excitement, I guess, for the next chapter of Chief is actually in Canada. And that's a bull that many people know and more people are going to hear about, Lindcrest to be famous. His daughter started calving in a few months back, which means he now has daughter information. He didn't quite have enough daughters milking long enough to go into the LPI rankings, but he had enough daughters that were scored, so he gets an official confirmation. And his first official confirmation with daughters is plus 16, which ranks him higher than most of the bulls we refer to more as the show type bulls. And he's not, being a chief son, he's not a show type pedigree, but he's a chief out of a premier. And Jersey breeders know premier. They love premier. He's got good daughters in commercial herds as well as in the show ring. So it's just a cross that worked quite well this time because To Be Famous has more of that show type in some of his daughters. Lots of breeders, I'm hearing good reports, seeing pictures of daughters. Lots of breeders started using him again before he had his results from his daughter proof just because they're so happy with him. He's solid production, over 800 of milk on the Canadian system. Strong pro dollars over, he's actually higher than Chief himself on pro dollars. And as I mentioned, the confirmation is plus 16. So he's just an all around bull that's probably going to have some daughters that do well in the show ring, but very well in commercial herds, just paying the bills, but a pleasure to look at. So he's our real excitement for this round. CMEX overall, not just Canada, but the US has already started using him heavier. He doesn't rank quite as high, obviously, because it's a different system, but he does well there, and breeders are excited who are milking daughters no matter what country they're in. So just a real exciting bull. And the fact that he's proven ranked fairly well as a genomic bull. We used him as a sire of sons, and we're seeing the results from that. The number 1 genomic LPI bull is a son of his. Actually, it's a To Be Famous out of a Vivaldi, and most everyone knows Vivaldi's been at the top of the list for years now. And so, obviously, mating a bull that ranks that high to a daughter of a bull that ranks that high, you're going to have good chances, but they're deep pedigrees, so they're pedigrees we're excited about. So, All Star Manchester is the number 1 GLPI bull at 22.16, where To Be Famous himself is 22.10, just both exciting. Then we go to Dulé Goldarak, who ranks 3rd and is extreme on confirmation. And then rounding out the top 4 for GLPI is Artemis, another To Be Famous out of Vivaldi. And so just very exciting to see that To Be Famous is transmitting not only his confirmation, but his production traits. And he's been used on deep pedigrees. He'll probably be used a little more now because he does rank so high, but just an exciting bull. And the fact that he's a chief son, so we can continue on those genetics that we already know work well. I guess I'll continue on with the next generation for Chief. He's old enough now. His grandsons are starting to have daughters milking. The first two that people are probably most familiar with are the Boss and Monarch. They're both out of a chief daughter, Progenesis Madison, who I've talked about before, one of our most prolific donors. And I've got some kind of hot off the press news on Friday. It was appraisal time at Vieira's, and she was raised from excellent 90 to excellent 92 as a 5-year
Wow.
old.
Fantastic.
So it just shows the genetics she has, she's continuing to transmit, but she's got the longevity as well. So that was real exciting to see that. But the Boss and Monarch are both just now having daughters calving. So it's very early, but I was able to see a few while I helped with a couple appraisals this past weekend, and they're looking like they've got those high wide rear udders that Chief has, good ligaments and teat placement, just real good dairy frames. So they're bringing those good Chief genetics, passing that on, and so it'll be exciting to see what they look like in August as they continue to add more daughters. So uh, kind of said before, Chief is somewhat just beginning, and now we're seeing it in the third generation. And just, he's a bull, as I said before, is just going to have a tremendous impact on the Jersey breed, moving that Jersey breed forward to be competitive on a production basis, but still have that type appeal with those high wide rear udders and cows that last a long time.
We could talk about Chief and his impact all day. I think we could do an entire episode on it, but we do have other Jersey bulls that we would like to talk about. So we'll move away from the Chief bloodline a little bit. We have bulls like Michigan coming in at #1 active genomic CFP bull. That's, yeah, you talked about him a little bit.
Yeah, he's an exciting bull. And one thing, as I was thinking about that, what I wanted to include with him is he's an example of how important it is to have daughter proofs. Since genomics came on, a lot of people are excited because we find out the potential of these bulls at a very young age. And some people thought, well, we're not going to need daughter proofs anymore. The DNA is going to tell us what they are. But that's not completely true. It increases the reliability, but still isn't the full picture. And it's so important to get that daughter data, production, as well as the appraisal scores. And we see that with Michigan, who is a heritage son. And when heritage was first released, he was a high impact bull, high genomic bull, so was used fairly heavily. But as you know, as new bulls get genomics, the older ones that aren't really that old just slowly start to move down the list and new ones come in. And that's how genetic progress happens. But in this case, we see Heritage was actually a little better than we thought on his production traits. So once he started adding daughters, his production came up. And of course, that's going to impact his sons and grandsons. And Michigan is a son of Heritage. So when Heritage came up, Michigan came back up. And yeah, he's tied at the #1 spot for CFP. He's a solid bull with production. Heritage is low on DPR, but Michigan is much better on DPR. So he's a bull that's been used fairly heavily in our program, but also in other programs because he is solid across the board. And we're now benefiting from the next generation. So not only does Michigan rank well and is doing well and has been used very heavily, one of our top sellers for last year on sorted semen. So that was exciting to see what impact he's going to make now. But a bull I talked about in December is a son of Michigan, and that's Excalibur P. So he's polled. What an exciting opportunity to not only bring those high production, solid genetics from Michigan into a pedigree, but also the polled aspect as well. And Excalibur is the #1 polled GJPI bull available. Again, he's solid across the board like his sire with production, positive production, not too negative on DPR, good udders. So he's a bull that has seen a lot of use. I think we'll see a lot more. And so that's exciting to have those genetics. The CFP, he's the #1 polled CFP bull, Excalibur is. And so that's exciting. And then some new things just, I guess, kind of put out there. There's 2 bulls, not in our lineup right now, but both have started collection. They have semen available in our IVF program, so they will be available soon because things are looking good for them. They're Michigan sons, 2 full brothers, but they're actually out of a Monarch daughter, which I've already talked about Monarch. So here we're combining Michigan with, again, the Chief bloodlines. And these 2 bulls, once once they're released, will be in the top 10 of the breed for GJPI. So they're just very exciting. It's Moonstar and Moonstorm. So be watching for those in the next few months. They'll have semen available, but it just shows the importance of being aware of what genetics you have, being diverse, because I've talked about a couple examples of bulls that moved up. There are bulls that do move down. But if you have a diverse lineup, then you're going to have sons of, I guess, both sides as we look at it, and they'll just continue to move up the charts. Pedigrees are so important. We have learned that with genomics quite often. As you look at those bulls that do change as daughters are added, those with a deep pedigree either don't change much or tend to move up, whereas those with what we would call holes in the pedigree, maybe obviously DNA said that they would test well, but if we're missing some production records, maybe some appraisal scores, the DNA doesn't have all the information to go into that. So reliability is lower. And as we add daughters, we see more movement in that type of a pedigree. Obviously, we're still going to have some of those pedigrees in our lineup because they are, if genomics say they're at the top, we need to try and use those in our program because some of those will stay high. But pedigrees are so important, and so we continue to try to look for those deep pedigrees and bring those into the program as well, so that we can have bulls like Chief and Michigan that will make an impact on the Jersey breed in a positive way to continue to help them be competitive and progressive in today's dairy market.
Jonathan, I have a question. Earlier you mentioned, Excalibur, and we talked about him being, #1 JPI in combined fat and protein for polled. How important and prevalent is polled becoming in the U.S. market? It's in your back door, and you see it globally. How is that changing things for jerseys?
It's becoming more and more prevalent, maybe not as fast as some of us thought it would be. But I think part of that challenge is people like the polled gene, but they want to make sure that the rest of the package is there. And so that can be the challenge, is making sure you've got the rest of the package, the production, the fertility, the health traits, the udders. As I look at different global markets, there are some countries who it is a priority. And in fact, in some cases, there's a few instances where creameries are actually paying a premium for those who will use polled bulls. So I think we're going to see some of that increase. In the US, it's kind of a niche in some areas where it's growing. Some of the bigger commercial herds may not look at it as much. Part of that is who in the management is doing the dehorning. Smaller herds where the owner is doing the dehorning, it becomes more important. The larger herds where the calves go to a calf ranch, it's not as noticed. And so I think that's part of the reason it's not always a priority. But I think as we see some regulations that are going towards animal welfare, we already treat our animals well. It's a business. We wouldn't stay in business if we didn't. But it's a public perception. And we've got to do a good job of making sure the public sees a positive perception. And when they learn about traits like polled that can reduce the chance of any, pain to the animal, certain people are going to kind of push that. So if we already have it in our genetics, particular high-end genetics, it's going to benefit us. So it's a trait that's becoming more important. I do have, over the last 3 years, each year I've had more people ask about it and what bulls we have. So it's growing, not, again, as I mentioned, to the level I thought it might be at this point, but it is a growing concern and trait that people look at. But it has to be coupled with a good bull. Just polled will not sell. So.
Right. In our Holstein podcast, which I'm sure that you watched very closely, we talked a little bit about adjusting thresholds with the base change and different things. What sort of recommendation are you giving your clients and that you're using in matings?
So as I look at these adjustments and still kind of adjusting myself to these new numbers, because what we used to look at as a minimum, now there's not that many bulls at that level. So when I talk about thresholds, I like to talk to breeders about having some minimum ideas, but not set so much in stone that they miss some genetics. An example of that is Chief. Now, when he was a genomic bull, his DPR wasn't that negative. But on the old system, a -2 was kind of the threshold for breeders to use on DPR. Well, they wouldn't use Chief because he's lower than that. And so look at what genetics they would be missing in their herd if they just put, for my example, -2 as their limit. And so as I talk to breeders, I say, yes, it's good to have an idea, minimize how many bulls might be below a certain level, below 1,000 of milk, or as I mentioned earlier, 100 CFP. But make sure you kind of look at the overall rankings so that you don't miss some bulls. But yeah, go in there, set some minimum ideas of where you want to be, because we want to continue to improve our herds. So if we just set a certain level and never change it, over time, we're going to slow our own genetic progress. So I'll use CFP as an example since I kind of talked about that earlier. We used to kind of look at 100 CFP as the level we wanted to look at. With the base change, it dropped 30 points, so that's 70. So if we're not going to see another base change for 5 years, if we keep that level at 70 for 5 years, yes, right now, those are the high bulls, but in 5 years, they won't be because we'll actually probably have a lot of bulls over 100. So if you kind of divide, just a simple example, so we improved by 30 CFP pounds over 5 years, that's 6 pounds a year. So if 70 is your limit for this year, maybe make it easy and just go to 75 next year, and then 80 the year after that. And so that you're slowly making progress, you're not just putting the same minimum that you did for 5 years, but just kind of be aware of where the breed's going. But also, again, when I look at things, when I'm looking at bulls for our mating program, yes, a bull that's really negative on a certain trait, I probably won't use as heavily. Those bulls that are strong across the board, those are the ones that you want to use the heaviest because you're going to get basically improvement across the board. But you don't want to miss out on certain genetics that can make a real positive impact. You just want to be specific and on how you mate them in your herd. And so that's, as I meet with breeders and discuss their breeding programs, that's kind of what I suggest is, yes, each year kind of increase your minimum guidelines, but make sure that you don't miss some of those outliers on certain traits that will make an impact in your herd in a positive way.
No, I guess that all makes a lot of sense.
Sure does.
Yeah, it's when we're looking at genetics, particularly with all that we have access to, because it's not just milk, fat, and protein anymore. We've got fertility, we've got health traits, and we're almost every year we add 1 or 2 health traits. And so there's a lot of information out there, and it's not just a simple, okay, I'll go choose the top 3 bulls. Well, top 3 for what? Cheese merit is important. That's a kind of a profit margin. JPI is important because that combines our production, our health traits, our fertility traits. So those are good things to look at. And yes, you want to use the bulls towards the top, but sometimes because of one negative trait, a bull misses those lists. But then you go to the top milk list or the top protein list, top udder list, you find some other bulls that actually they're not maybe that bad in certain traits. They just weren't high enough to make the top 5 or whatever it may be. So it does take time to find the right bulls. I mean, yes, you can still make progress if you just go to one list, use the top 5 or whatever it may be. But if you really want to make progress across the board and help the breed, you just need to take a little more time and look at a variety of traits and not miss some bulls that can make an impact and improve. Because on the opposite, there's some extreme DPR bulls that aren't so high in production. So do we want to eliminate them just because they're not high production bulls? No, they're actually perfect for like Chief. And then that next generation has Chief's production and that bull's DPR. And so that's why it's important to kind of look at more traits than just 3 or 4, just to continue to move forward and be competitive.
Super advice. Last question from me, swear. We might not talk to you until August, which is very sad, but I'm wondering, what are you excited about for August besides To Be Famous? Pick something
You knew
else.
the first one I was going to talk about
I
because
did
he'll have
actually. Yes.
production information, and that's looking really good. Probably like the bulls I was talking about, some of these chief grandsons, Monarch and the Boss, who are going to add a lot more daughters. ZZ Top is a bull that his initial genomics were high, but as his sire actually added daughters, then he dropped because his sire didn't have as much production as genomics said he would. But ZZ Top actually has some daughters milking, and he actually ranks pretty good on cheese merit for real preliminary information. Again, it's just a small sample, so we'll see what that does. But I think there's some other bulls in there that may kind of sneak up there. It's a challenge with our new genomic system because some of the bulls I've mentioned, we do still have. We just don't have space to keep them all. We don't always know which ones to keep. So what we try to do is have a good inventory on these bulls before we do move on if we need to. And that's what we do with some of the bulls I've talked about as well, like ZZ Top. And so there's a variety of bulls coming in that could move up and look pretty nice. And a lot of them are going back to chief bloodlines, but ZZ Top's an example of a little different pedigree. Initial daughters are looking pretty good. I saw some of them this weekend as well. Good udders. They look like they're going to milk more than his proof suggests right now. So I think August could be exciting with more than just To Be Famous.
Do you think Monarch and the Boss are going to get full proofs?
Yes, in August they should.
In
yes.
August they will.
Yep.
Excellent.
Yep. Yeah, because they'll have, they got some daughters scored they're getting daughters scored this month because the appraisers are in California. That's where a big number are. And they've already got a few daughters milking. And so by August, they'll have several more. So yeah, it should be more reliable by then.
That's great. Well, thank you, Jonathan, for taking the time to give us some insights and then also some little nuggets to look forward to into the future and into August. We really appreciate your time doing this.
Happy to. Always like to talk jerseys.
Welcome to YouTube.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Yep. Thank you.